वंदे
मातरम वंदे मातरम वंदे मातरम वंदे मातरम वंदे मातरम वंदे मातरम वंदे मातरम वंदे मातरम
वंदे
वंदे मातरम वंदे मातरम वंदे मातरम वंदे मातरम वंदे मातरम वंदे मातरम।
In rural West Bengal, India, where half the population lives in poverty on less than $1 a day, the poorest people can't rely on a regular income. Instead, they eke out a living from selling small goods made from materials bought or grown and then on sold. Even when doing well, they often live day to day. When sickness or unexpected expenses strike poor families, they struggle to buy food and clothing and often cannot buy materials to keep their small businesses going. Sometimes this means children work rather than go to school to help earn their family enough money to survive. If the difficulty continues, with few or no assets to sell, their only option is to borrow money from family or friends. Or if they can't or won't help, they borrow from the local moneylender. Rates can work out at around 100% a day. But in need, and with little alternative, many can ill afford not to borrow. Saraswati Kayal is a poor mother whose husband is not always able to provide for the family needs. She learnt the skill of solar flower carving to try and earn enough to feed and clothe her family, but had difficulty earning profit due to the high cost of her loan to buy materials.
ফাঁকে থেকে নিলে 5,000 টাকা নিলে এবার প্রতি মাসে 5,000 ও সুদ চাই আর এরকম তো ফের মাস না যখন টাকাটা ওরা চাইবে যে আমার টাকা দিয়ে দিতে হবে এবার 2 বছর হোক 3 বছর হোক যত ফেলে রাখবে আমার সুদ যাচ্ছে তাহলে আসল টাকাটা বসানো থাকবে ঠিক।
Arrangements involving hire of goods can be just as usurious as money lending. Dinesh Dutta, a local rickshaw puller, used to hire a rickshaw every day for a large percentage of his daily earnings, making barely enough profit to support his young family. His daily hire fee meant he could never save enough to buy his own vehicle and escape from living day to day.
इसका जीवन ভালো
কেন পরিশ্রম করতে হয়
পরিশ্রম
আছে আর হচ্ছে এই তো গাড়ির অ্যাক্সিডেন্ট হয় আগে দিতে কষ্ট হতো ভাড়া ভ্যান চালিয়ে কত করব।
Anima Day started relatively better off. When her husband left her 15 years ago with 5 children, including 4 young daughters to bring up, she had a small plot of land for growing vegetables. It helped feed herself and her children, and she was able to borrow money against it. It was enough to survive the dry season, but in the wet season, they were starving. She needed to find a way to provide a future for herself and her 5 children.
কিন্তু আমি সেই সময়টা আমার মনের মধ্যে একটা জেদ এসেছিল যে সকলে বলে তো বাবা না থাকলে ছেলে মেয়ে মানুষ করা যায় না তাদের ভবিষ্যৎ দেখা যায় না এইটুকুতে মানে চাষ করলাম ওর বাবা যে যখন চলে গেল সেই জমিটুকু বাঁধা দিলাম বাঁধা দিয়ে বাচ্চাদের মানুষ করতে হবে এখন তো যতক্ষণ না জমির ওপরে কিছু ফেলছি সে তো আর আমার কিছু দিচ্ছে না এবারে সেটা বাঁধা দিলাম প্রচুর অভাব ছিল একটু কেন ভালো অভাব ছিল খেতে হয়তো আজকে রান্নাম কাল আর পাচ্ছি না সেইটুকুই থেকে কিছু হাঁড়িতে আছে অল্প ভাত আছে 5 ভাই বোনের সে কটা মাখিয়ে 5 জনকে ভাগ করে দিয়ে বললাম তোরা খা বড় মেয়ে ছেলে বলবে মা খাবে না না আমার হাঁড়িতে আছে খাচ্ছি ওদের সামনে কি করব হয়তো কিছু আছে সে কটা হাঁড়িতে বের করে নিয়ে সেই কটা গালে ফেলে জল খেলাম খেয়ে ওদের পাশে শুয়ে পড়েছি এরকম দিনও আমার গেছে।
One organisation helped to change Anima's life. In Ulon village, in the district of South 24 Parganas, a local lendings and savings institution called by locals Sishu Udyan or VSSU has been making loans to the poorest villagers for over 25 years and has over 70,000 clients like Saraswati, Dinesh and Anima. The loans are typically very small, around 5,000 rupees, roughly equivalent to $100, and are only lent for income-making purposes. They are typically used to buy stock or assets for micro businesses. Loans are typically paid back in 1 year in daily increments of 10 to 20 rupees. No collateral is required, and the minimal paperwork acts as a repayment schedule rather than a contract. VSSU also offers a savings facility. Savings from clients vary, but typically savings amount are regular, around 10 rupees a day. The staff ride on bicycles to visit villages daily, collecting funds in person and doing all of the accounting by hand. Reports of incoming and outgoing finances are sent by SMS to head office, where 5 central computers operate on generated power when load sharing results in a blackout. In some regards, it's a slick operation with low overheads and simple systems. Microfinance works where the banking system cannot. The poorest people may not necessarily be a bad credit risk, but with no assets for security and high rates of illiteracy, combined with a need for a smaller amount of money than the bank's minimum loan, it's just too hard for a bank to service them. For the rural poor, who may live far away from the local banks, the problem is compounded by lack of infrastructure such as roads, telephones, and electricity, which make communication between them and the bank impossible. The local bank manager acknowledges that his bank cannot meet the needs of many rural people.
Actually, in rural people, banks are very limited here. Banks in 8 to 10 villages, one banks are there. Nationalist Bank, branch of Nationalist Bank. And that's why the rural people, all are not coming to the bank. They are nearby, there are so many money lenders are there in the locality. And they took the money from the money lender, they are utilized, and they sometimes cannot repay as because high rate of interest, but they have to take the money from the money lender. As because they have some lack of knowledge. Yes, there some communication problem is also there. Their villages are in remote areas. There are roads, some roads are not metallic roads. Many roads are in mud. And that's why communication is also a problem. If we want to go there very short span of time, we could not reach. Even the car is not going to the different villages. And in rainy season, it will be a very sad situation. In rainy season, the situation is not that we go easily to the villages. So communication is one of the most important. If the better communication is there, we can serve the people effectively.
Microfinance institutions bridge a gap between local banks and the poorest borrowers. They work in remote villages and city slums to gain information on the ability of poor borrowers to repay a loan and can on-lend bank funds in micro amounts. Because they work locally, they can go directly to small villages to collect payments from many clients at a time. In this way, they overcome problems of transportation and small loan sizes that would be otherwise impossible for a bank to administer. Priya Dutta is a microfinance client. She borrowed 1,000 rupees to buy her husband Dinesh a new rickshaw cycle. They have 2 young sons who they hope to support through high school and hopefully college.
আগে লোন নেওয়ার আগে হচ্ছে যে ভ্যান ভাড়া চালাতেন।
ভ্যান ভাড়া চালাতাম, হ্যাঁ, ভাড়া চালাতে চালাতে দেখলাম যে পাড়ায় একটা লোনের ব্যবস্থা হয়েছে। ওরা নিজের স্ত্রীকে নিয়ে, হ্যাঁ, গেলাম সেখানে, যাওয়ার পরে লোনের ব্যবস্থা হলো, হওয়ার পরে লোনটা 5,000 টাকা লোনটা নিয়ে একটা গাড়ি কিনে সেই থেকে উন্নতি করে, হ্যাঁ, ভাড়ার ভ্যান চালিয়েছে।
এখন নিজের
খুব
হয়েছে,
কষ্ট।
এখন কোনো অসুবিধা নেই।
वन्दे मातरं वन्दे मातरं वन्दे मातरं
One of the most innovative lending models used in microfinance is the group lending model. Pioneered by Nobel Prize winner Mohammed Yunus of the Grameen Bank, the model is famous for requiring no collateral, no documentation, lending to the poorest women in Bangladesh, and achieving greater than 96% repayment rates. In dramatic contrast with conventional financial tools that assess loans on formal collateral, such as land or a salary, and which use the threat of law enforcement to ensure repayment, the key to the group lending model is social relationships. Loans are typically reserved for women only and require a group of 5 or more co-borrowers. The group then applies for individual loans at the same time, and all of the members of the group must guarantee all loans. Loan repayment is enforced by social ties between women that have been living in the same village for their entire lives. If a group member defaults, they risk social ostracization and may destroy their ability to borrow money in the future. Statistics on the creditworthiness of microfinance clients show typical repayment rates of 96% or higher, outperforming many commercial banks. This means that funds can be lent and relent continuously, in contrast to the one-off funding of many other aid programs that have no expectation of financial return. Anima Day started as a microfinance client of VSSU 10 years ago and used her first loan to buy materials to grow her sari embroidery business. As a single mother in a rural village in one of the poorest parts of India, Anima's business has given her the financial independence to support her 5 children and ensure that the youngest 3 girls were able to study 12 years of school. She is now a proud grandmother.
কিন্তু এখন ঠাকুর এইটাই করে ছেলেও ওই শিখে এলো। আগে বাইরে যাননি না না, আগে হচ্ছে ওই বৌমার কাছ থেকে করতাম, টুকটুক করে দিচ্ছে, আমি এখানে এনে মেয়েদের সব দিচ্ছি, ওদের দিলাম, সে তারা যেমনভাবে আমার মজুরি দিত আমি সেইভাবে তাদের দিতাম, তাতে থেকে কিছু আমার রাখতে হতো, সুতোও আমার কিনে করতে হতো, তো শুধু তারা শাড়িটাই দেবে, সে আর কিছু দেবে না। এই শুরু করলো, এবার আমার টাকার প্রয়োজন লাগবে, কি করব, টাকা তো আর কোথাও পেয়ে উঠবো না, আর পেতে গেলে প্রচুর হারে দিতে হবে, সুদ দিতে হবে, কি করে পারবো? তাও আমি যেটুকু রোজগার করব যদি সব সুদে দিলাম, তাহলে আর বাচ্চাদের বাঁচাবো কী করে, আর আমার এই সংসারও আবার টানবো কী করে? এই সংস্থা কপিলবাবু এতে আমি নিলাম, লোন নিলাম।
তার আগে কারো কাছে
না না, কারো কাছ থেকে প্রথম লোন নিয়েছি।
Over the years, she has used the loan facility several times to buy stock or stitching assets. She now employs up to 100 other women and men in peak season.
তখন আমার মনের মধ্যে যেন একটা ফুর্তি এলো, আনন্দও পেলাম যে আমি আমার মাথার উপরে ছাদ হয়তো একটু খুঁজে পেয়েছি। আমার সঙ্গে যুক্ত আছে এখন কেউ করছে, কেউ আবার করছে না। হ্যাঁ, মোটামুটি এখন 100-100-100-র মতো আছে।
100?
হ্যাঁ।